All right, so this is part two of Game 470, my final project. Um, at the end of the part one, I went over, sort of finished up the draw scene function, and so as you can see, it's a lot, I guess, simpler than what it used to be. So each individual object only calls render after each shader is set up, and then adding the mirror in basically complicated things a little bit. Okay, so now I will actually go through the scene. So this basically have the house is set up as a small village here. And then there's a dragon attacking it. And then I have some dragon eggs back here, which are just the spheres. And so the dragon and the houses are set up in the shaders are texture light, and there's a directional light. Obviously, you could see in the sphere that currently it's from the right side of the screen to the left. That's the directional light is going that way. I have 3 point lights in the scene. Two of them are in the dragon's eyes, as green lights here. So there's obviously the one on this side, and then there's another one on his other eye socket. Right there. The spotlight is actually positioned in the dragon's mouth, or just at the edge of his mouth, and then it's directed at this house, so he's attacking this house, and you can see the spotlight is actually moving in a circular fashion there across the house, and you can see the light sort of on the terrain also behind the building. You can see it move. And so then the last point light is actually over here on the back side of the house, so it looks like the back side of the house is also on fire. You can see that there. And so obviously terrain in the background, there's some fog effect there. I didn't do a lot of fog effects because I sort of wanted you to see it, but I definitely wanted to see the fog in the background take effect, so you could see those hills are grayed out, and obviously the color of the fog that I chose was gray. And I guess I'll show you the skybox right now. So there are, obviously in the initial skybox that we had to do for homework, there were some lines and wasn't as high of a resolution image, but I did slightly higher for the final project and cleaned up the lines. All right. Let's see, where am I at here? All right. So there is a mirror in the scene over here, if I can get to it. So I have it set up as basically like a small pond, even though it's obviously a plane, so it doesn't exactly look like a pond. Was going to clean that up if I had a little bit more time, but unfortunately I ran out of time here. And then initially when I set it up, the objects were still rendering on the other side of the terrain, which obviously was incorrect. That was sort of took a lot of time trying to figure out that bug. But it was, again, it was including that one variable in the clear stencil at the top of the draw scene, and that cleaned that up. So as you can see, the light is also reflected because you can see the dragon's eye there, and then pretty sure. All right. And then I guess that's pretty much all of it. I guess I'll show you the other side just to make sure that, let's see here. Yep. So nothing is displayed on the other side of the mirror, which is obviously how it should be. That's pretty much it. I think my API as a whole is a lot more functional than what we started out with. It's pretty easy to create objects if you know what object that you want. You can load it from file, or there's a set number of objects that are pre-made. I guess if certain things that you'll need to know in order to use it are obviously you need to know how textures interact with objects, and so how to pass through certain textures. But each class is relatively simple to set up, and you'll just need to know, basically the person using the API will need to know what shader that they want to use, and given that specific shader, they need to know what, if they need a texture, they'll also need lights set up in the scene if they want them. They need to know fog. And then obviously the corresponding graphical object to that shader that they'll need to use. But beyond that, after setting up each model, then all they need to do in the draw scene is just set the texture to context, or set the shader to context, and then send over the camera position. And that's pretty much it. Then you can just go on and each object and render them, and which makes it a lot simpler than what we started out with. All right, this I guess concludes the second part of the video for the final project for GAM 470. Thanks.